Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Striking, the movie podcast. I'm Val.
And I'm Patrick Gibbs. I'm the film critic for Slug Magazine. Just wanted to plug myself a little bit.
The Slug?
Yeah, Salt Lake Underground Magazine. Fair enough. The same react. I had that same kind of confusion from when I was speaking to Andrew Garfield and Gil Birmingham. They were a little confused by the name Slug Magazine. In fact, I said Slug Magazine, that's Salt Lake Underground, and Andrew Garfield just started to laugh. And Gil turned to him and said, "Why is that funny?" And he's just, it's just a very specific niche market for a magazine. I just thought it sounded cool.
Love it. And we are going to hopefully get to hear your interview. We'll put it up on our YouTube page pretty soon, right?
It's a short one. I had 4 minutes with the two of them. I don't know why I did 2 for 4 minutes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But we're
10
excited.
minutes with Dustin Lance Black, but only 4 with the two of them.
We still need to do an episode specifically on that series, and I think that we should just have one, like maybe a special episode where we specifically talk about that series, and maybe we put the clip in there because it's intense. And we still need to see the last couple episodes.
Yes, I actually Dustin Lance Black, the writer, creator of the show, started following me on Twitter after the interview. Yeah, and we've actually messaged back and forth a bit. Such a nice, one of the nicest people I have ever met. Awesome. He reminds me just a little bit of Kenneth DePage on 30 Rock.
Okay.
But in an entirely good way. But he told me that he was trying to get them out there. He wanted to have them in time for the reviews, but he's just still working on them. Still deep in post-production.
As we were watching the episodes they sent us, they still had post-production notes on the screen of what to do. But I was at the edge of my seat in every episode. I'm finally all caught up to what we have. So we will do a special episode on that soon. So make sure that you head over to, where is it streaming again?
Hulu. And before we move on, I just want to say, for those,
it's Under the Banner of Heaven is what
Under the Banner of Heaven
of what we're talking about.
For those in Utah who are, this is a show that's really easy to go into with preconceived ideas, and I feel a lot of people are writing it off as something specific, jumping to an idea of what the show is, having seen only a little bit or not seen any at all.
Just the trailer. Some people or they hear the story about what it's about. And one of the things I said on Good Things Utah when I reviewed just the first episode, because I watched the first episode and I had to take a couple days to digest it because I'm not LDS. I never have been. I didn't know much about this story. But it really, no matter, I think, who you are and what group or affiliations or religions or whatever you belong to, I think that you can relate to this because it's not a religious bashing show.
It's not, and
I was really happy to see that all the way through. It is a show about someone who has a very strong belief in a specific thing, and that happens to be the LDS Church. And he has to put his belief not to the side. It's very much full front in who he is as a person, but to really get to the bottom of something and investigate it. So when you believe in something so strong, can you still do your job? And he has a very important job to do. And then he realizes this isn't against my church. These are people, and this situation is totally outside of the beliefs that I have. I'm saying him. And so I really, just watching it, I think that when you believe in something heavily, and we'll get into this into the episode when we do it, and you are challenged and you still come out the other side believing in what you believe in, I think that you are a true believer. And I think testing your belief, it is good, and questioning it and knowing that, knowing who you are is very important, especially the job that he has as a detective. Like, I can't even imagine like being in his shoes. And so it's, again, we wanted to talk about it today, but it really is an episode all of its own.
It is. The last thing I'll say before we move on is the point that I wanted to make is just either watch it and give each episode a chance and let the story unfold, or recognize that you really can't give a fully informed opinion and praise or bash on the show one way or another unless you've seen the whole thing and have given it a true chance.
Yeah. And I think that this is based on a true story, but I also think that for every movie, a lot of people will see a description of a movie. And I have done this before, and I'm like, that's just not really for me. There were 2 movies last year that I was like, I really don't want to see. One of them I didn't, and one of them I did. And, I learned a little bit more about myself. But today we're talking about, some that could fall in that category. The first one we want to jump into, though, is The Duke. Now, I haven't seen this, but you have, so tell us all about it.
Sure. So The Duke is the last film from the late director Roger Michell. He directed Changing Lanes with Ben Affleck and Samuel L. Jackson, and a number of high-profile films. This is his final film, and it's a true story. In 1961, Kempton Bunton, a taxi driver who was also an amateur playwright and an activist, stole the portrait of the Duke of Wellington from the National Gallery in London. The thing about it is that Kempton was a very eccentric and colorful guy, and his motives for what he did are not what you would expect. And he had a bit of a Robin Hood-esque flair to him, and his motives and his colorful personality made him a big embarrassment for the establishment and something of a cult figure for the masses. And it was a trial that was something of a big deal at the time. We don't ever hear about it now, but it's a great story. And it stars Jim Broadbent, Oscar winner, and he was in Moulin Rouge, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So many different films. A favorite actor of mine, and he just soars in this role. He is delightfully funny, and he's got Dame Helen Mirren for backup playing his wife, and Finn Whitehead from Dunkirk, which is a great film. No matter what other local podcasters,
I love it,
whose name shall remain nameless,
Mark.
I'm just giving him a hard time because I love to do so. We have that kind of relationship. I love Dunkirk, but this movie is just a delight from start to finish. It's witty and whimsical and heartfelt, and it deals with some serious issues like grief, poverty, marital issues, but it does so all without losing this light, fun tone that it has. And the cast is just so great together. The chemistry between Whitehead and Broadbent is just a delight. Finn Whitehead plays their son who lives at home, and it's just such a unique movie, such this distinctly British quirky comedy with some substance to it, and it's got just wonderful score by the great George Fenton, who we're talking about a composer whose music ranges from his great scores range from Gandhi to Groundhog Day. This guy has massive versatility and just adds so much personality. But we don't get to hear his scores that often. He's not like one of these people that comes out with 6 or 8 scores per year. So it was so welcome to have it pop up. This is one of my favorite films of the year so far.
Wow. Okay.
It really, really grabbed me. We've talked so far on this show. We've been, I know you give movies grades. I'm still kind of trying to figure out my format, because the thing about Slug Magazine is that we don't do any kind of a grade or star system, which has been different for me. I'm used to that. The nice thing about the plus and minus of it, the thing I like about it is it forces people to actually read my reviews instead of just skimming the top. It also forces me as a writer to be more descriptive and argue my points better. The thing that some of my friends don't like is they say, well, especially on bigger films, they say, I just want to know whether you liked it. I don't want to know details.
I know. Don't you love when you get messages from your friends? So what'd you think? And I'm like, but it's not, most films are not that easy to just say, yeah, it was good. Because we're taught not to say that. We're taught to say a little bit more. So you're never going to get.
And the reality is most films aren't just good or bad. But that being said, this one, I'm going to go right now with as much as we want. So I wanted a uniformity between us to make our viewers make it less confusing for our viewers / listeners. So I'm going to go with the graded system for this one.
Oh, okay.
I give this one an A.
Wow. Okay.
A.
And The Duke is in theaters this weekend?
Yes, it opens tomorrow. It'll be at the Broadway Center here in Utah, in Salt Lake, and some other select theaters. And
I'm going to go see it just on your recommendations. So
cool.
The next one is a little more difficult. It is in that gray area when somebody's like, hey, did you like this movie? I'm going to give you a really long answer. And we're talking about Firebird because for me, it's a little difficult for me to just say, it's good or it's bad. It's a very touchy subject. So this movie takes place during the Cold War. It takes place in a place that things are already dangerous. But when you add relationships in the Soviet Union, plus you have military, plus you have the Cold War, and then you have a love triangle of this consequence, it makes things very, very difficult. And so for me, this is an LGBTQ plus storyline,
right?
Because you have a young kid who is in the military in the Soviet Union during the Cold War, who is gay or bisexual. I like how they don't really answer that question. They just show him having relationships with men and women, and he kind of forms this love triangle with a man and a woman, and there isn't anything easy about either relationship.
With a man and a woman and a pizza place.
And
Obscure reference, sorry.
Yeah, I know. For me, it was heartwarming and heartbreaking at the same time, and also very boring in a lot of spots. And I don't know how you can describe a movie like that. It takes place in the Cold War. You've got a love triangle. You've got, love between a man and a woman, and you've got a war going on. Usually you're thinking this is just going to be, it was the pacing of the movie ruined it for me.
The pacing was so off. It's not only a touchy subject, it's an important subject.
It is. It's very important.
I wanted to be on board with, I wanted to be championing this film because it is a subject that is timely, not just for, it's certainly timely for the Russian region, but it's timely everywhere, including in the U.S., especially this week when we're looking at some big developments as to where we might go in certain things. But for me, the pacing was really off. I felt that Tom Pryor, who plays the lead role of Sergei, co-wrote the script along with Peter Rebane, who directed the film. And I felt that Tom Pryor, for those of you who don't know, he's a young British actor who played a small supporting role in the first Kingsman film. And this movie is definitely his attempt to raise his profile a bit by kind of pulling a Damon Affleck and writing his own star vehicle. And it really felt to me like he was trying to write his own star vehicle. He's the only character that gets, I felt like he was so preoccupied with giving himself speeches and little Oscar clip moments that he tended to forget about the other characters. Honestly, I found the character of Roman, who is the pilot that Sergei is having a relationship with, who's played by Oleg Zagorodny. I'm just gonna cross my fingers and hope I didn't slaughter that. I found him just like, this man could bore for his country. It was such a dull performance. And and that's a harsh thing to say. I think that part of the blame for that has to go on both Rebane and Pryor, but I did not feel invested in in Roman, or feel anything about why either of these characters, Louisa, the woman that marries him, or Sergei, have this strong attraction to him, which could have worked in that both of them ultimately, in some ways, I felt were as much just looking for someone to bring out the side of them as they were necessarily in love with him. There were ways they could have explored that, but another problem that I had was that I felt like Louisa was shortchanged as a character.
I do as well. I really think, like you said, this is a very important storyline. And I went in thinking this is going to be such a great movie for the year, right? And then when you get into Louisa, I feel like it was an afterthought of a character where she is so, when they actually give her moments, she's so compelling on screen, right?
Yes.
Yes. But you have to search for it, and you're hoping that other things are going to happen and you're going to grab on, and then you never get those grab on moments from me with her or Roman in the movie, because again, there are a few moments when Sergei wants to have that shining moment. So together, the characters in those moments will have this heartbreaking or heartwarming or tremendous moment, but it's more about him than them. And I want it to be about them, because I feel that's the story. When you know, I'm invested in the story because I have friends and allies that I want people to know more about these stories, and so that we can all be having bigger conversations, right?
Absolutely.
So I really want people to see this movie, but I feel like it doesn't give us enough to care about these people.
Absolutely. And when you do, like you said, there are moments where Louisa really, the actress really starts to get something great out of it. But one of the big ones, it almost feels like Pryor felt like she's starting to steal my thunder, and like takes over the scene in the middle of it. It's that uneven, and I just felt like her story is a part of this story. The way the way someone who falls in love with someone who is LGBTQ plus, but isn't and doesn't know that side of them. That's a subject. The way those people are hurt is a part of the tragedy of the way we make these people live in the closet, and those people are victims that deserve to be explored too. And I felt like she wasn't. It also, I gotta say, so symbolism on film for me can be a great thing or just a cringe-inducing one. It all depends on how it's handled. And there's a moment in here that a sex scene between Roman and Sergei, where at the critical moment they cut away to a shot of two jets flying away after burners ablaze. And it's like it's trying to go for the Hitchcock tunnel kind of suggestiveness. And it just made me think of The Naked Gun and those kinds of over-the-top parodies of that sort of thing. It was so unsubtle that I just couldn't help but laugh out loud. This is a movie that has got some good intentions. Mm-hmm. Some of it is well executed. It's ultimately, it's made by a music video and documentary director tackling his first narrative feature, and a writer who has neither of the two writers have written a feature before. And I hate to say it, I don't mean it in a cruel way, but it shows they have potential. They might have a great movie in them. This isn't that movie. It was a lofty, a grand subject to tackle for their first movie, and I don't think that they were up to the challenge yet.
I definitely think that it's important enough that people give it a watch. I don't think you need to watch. This isn't something I'm going to watch again, but I do think I'm going to give this movie a C+. However, I think there are enough moments in the film and enough things that are brought up in the film that will cause good conversations to be had about the subject. But I don't think it's a mind-changing film because there were some lost moments. And like you said, the pacing, I think maybe a more experienced editor could have maybe helped this. But when you have the writers so heavily involved in a film that they can't step back and see that maybe that they need a little help in the pacing. I don't know what, again, I do think there's a lot of promise. I do think it was a great story and subject to tackle. But there are just, some mishaps. I hope I see more from everyone involved in the film. But you can see it once. I don't know that you're going to want to watch it again. But I definitely think you should give it a try, but I give it a C+. So
agreed. I give it a C. I think it's an important subject matter. I just wish it had been handled in a more memorable and persuasive way.
Yeah.
But I hope to see more on the subject. I honestly would love to see a documentary on this exact story.
Yeah, that would be compelling as well.
That takes excerpts directly from the diary, the book that it's based on. I think, because I would like to know more and see if I could get more emotionally invested in it. So, all right. So, and Firebird is playing now, both in theaters and is it on Amazon?
It should be streaming. Let me double check really quick. After we talk about Firebird, we're going to jump into one of the biggest movies of the year that we actually don't agree on. I think we probably agree on it a little bit, but I think that
I'm sure we have areas that we agree.
But I think it's okay that we don't always agree on everything. But usually when it comes to the MCU, you and I are pretty close.
We're pretty close. I do feel that we're a little bit, that we have perhaps different little things that we look for in some respects, but we're in the big picture, we're on the same page.
Firebird starts streaming on May 16th. So it's still in theaters for another couple of weeks on its own. So May 16th, if you want to watch it from home, you can do that. Now we're going to jump into Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I'm going to jump in really quick just because I know you have a lot to say about it. I will be talking about this. I'm going to give myself a little plug tomorrow morning on Good Things Utah around like 10:15. And I'm basically just going to cover this one movie because I'm going to kind of give a roadmap to the Multiverse of Madness of things that maybe you should watch before and after seeing the movie. And I will also have that posted on a link on our Facebook page that goes to my What to See with Val page. But I just want to start by saying I'm more of a Earth-based superhero lover. I do really like Doctor Strange because he started as an Earth-based superhero and has kind of moved forward into a lot of other things. I was looking forward to this movie a lot. I'm not a huge fan of horror films. I do like suspense. I do like dark kind of things. I wasn't a huge fan of WandaVision. I didn't hate it by any means. I just didn't quite connect to it as much as I would have liked to until a lot of it was explained to me and then I saw where it was headed. So I respect it into where it was leading us into the MCU, but it's not one that I go back and watch over and over. So that's where I'm giving you my starting point for when we talk about this movie today.
Okay. To give you my starting point, WandaVision is my choice for the single best thing MCU has ever done.
Oh, wow.
I loved. And part of that is I like both Earth-based superheroes and space-based ones, but I'll be honest, that show really made me realize that when it comes to my geek cred, I am far more well-versed and grew up far more on classic sitcoms than I didn't read comic books. I've never read a Marvel comic. Well, no, I've read a couple of smaller Spider-Man ones, but that's just
me too. Same.
Not who I am. I watched Super Friends as a kid and like Superman movies and stuff like that. And loved the old Batman series, but I wasn't somebody who grew up on Marvel at all. Now, other background, Doctor Strange was a movie that I remember seeing the trailers and just thinking, this is just a Matrix wannabe. I don't care. And then I loved it.
I loved it.
It was so funny, so smart, so full of great performances, and all the little Doctor Strange moments in the movie since then have been just wonderful. And on top of that, I'm not a horror fan. I can appreciate it under the right circumstances, but it's not my genre. That being said, I sat through so much of Spider-Man Spider-Man No Way Home. For me, was about remembering how much I loved Sam Raimi's first two Spider-Man films. So while I was bummed that Scott Derrickson was not directing this one because he did such a great job with the original Doctor Strange, I was excited to see Sam Raimi return to superheroes.
And I do like all superheroes, by the way. I'm just more connected because of the way I grew up. Like you, the only comic books I have, yes, on Earth, are Spider-Man. And I watched all of, X-Men, Spider-Man, like all the Saturday morning cartoons, but a lot of TV shows. I didn't really get into comic books. So my knowledge of the MCU and all of those characters are mainly from the movies, right? And less from comic books. And so, but I loved Doctor Strange, and I loved Doctor Strange in No Way Home. And that was like my favorite movie from last year. And so I was super excited. I respect Sam Raimi and everything that he's done, even though that I really like his style, even though I'm not big into all of the movies that he makes just because it's not my genre, but him as a filmmaker, I do tend to respect. So I was very excited that knowing that we were going to get Wanda back in this, because we saw that in the trailers, and we're not going to give you any spoilers, by the way, so you don't need to tune out. We're just going to give you our feelings on the movie. But so I was like, okay, I kind of liked WandaVision after I kind of knew what things meant, and more about like all these things from the comics that I didn't understand and where it was going, after I was schooled a little bit, I guess. And then seeing Doctor Strange, I was just like, yes, I want more of him. Then we went and watched the film, and I have to say that there's going to be comparisons, because we just got Spider-Man No Way Home, and it was one of the biggest films last year, and it was a huge fan favorite. And so I'm going to compare it. That had more heart than this movie. I think my biggest problem with Doctor Strange into the Multiverse of Madness was the lack of heart. I really thought that the first Doctor Strange, you saw this transformation between him, which is the same reason I love Iron Man so much, is they start off as just like this person that's all about them, and then they turn into this person that's all about the bigger picture. And then you get into this newer movie, and I feel like some of the characters are afterthoughts, like America. She's there, and I feel like she was an afterthought of a character. I don't care about her at all. They don't give me enough to care about her, and it frustrates me the whole movie.
Well, and that's not to. I don't want to jump in and cut off.
No, please do.
Your opinion, but just to say, the thing that was frustrating about that is that this character is being so talked about.
Yeah.
And it's a charming performance.
Yeah.
I liked her. And the character, the poor actress, is getting cyberbullied by overzealous Marvel fans who are upset about the film being banned in certain countries over issues that have nothing to do with her as a person and really don't have as much to do with her specific character as I expected them to. It's totally out. I think we've seen recently that I hate to get into the one versus the other mindset, but there is so much the DC gatekeeping toxic fandoms are so loud and so present that it's easy to forget that it does happen with Marvel too. But those people definitely are out there, and we've seen some negative stuff recently involving this movie. But the point, I thought America was a charming presence. This is where I'm going to give away my eclectic weirdness as a person. I was familiar with that actress because, and you are not going to see this coming at all, she plays Dawn on the Babysitter's Club on Netflix. And I love that show. I binged that show. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's such a great show. And they didn't give. I thought she did a great job. I knew you were not going to see that coming. No,
but it makes me like you even more. So.
Yeah, I know. And everybody was like, "You watched what?" Except
I watched it. I watched it. I reviewed it.
I have a sister who loved who had all of those books, and I read the back covers of all of them. I have a friend, actress Karen Conoval, who's the first interview I ever did, who was in the first season. So I was excited to see her, and she really is charming in the movie. They just don't give her they're very unclear. There are so many questions that I had about her character. I felt like she was okay. Maybe this works for you if you're a diehard, already initiated Marvel person, but the character isn't very clear or her place in the story and her larger journey as a person really doesn't come through in the movie.
For me, it felt like a check mark.
Uh-huh.
Like, we need to have this kind of character in this movie. Check. She's there, but it doesn't. I don't get enough to care about her, and I want to care about her. It's not one of those that they're there and you're just kind of like, whatever. I want to care about her. I want it to make sense. And when I keep getting not enough, it got very frustrating for me because I've been really excited for this film. The other part of this film is that it's Mother's Day weekend and you've got a really angry mom in this movie. And I've got to tell you, like, you know, when we get into all of the different sides, so we've got Scarlet Witch, you know, we've got how that transforms, and we've gotten all these teasers about how this is going to happen, and is she going to be good or evil in this movie over the past year, right? All these different teasers and different movies and different series and all this stuff. But I have to say that this is probably this actress's Olsen, her best performance as a character was in the series and then in this movie. I know she's been in other movies and the movies have been fine and her acting has been fine. And as much as her character kind of annoys me in this film, I had to like compartmentalize different scenes and look at it as a film critic and not a fan of the MCU. So as I'm watching the movie, I like have to put my frustration aside and say, okay, look at this scene, look at what she's doing as two different people in a scene and what she's giving. And she gives a lot as an actress, as an artist in this movie.
I partially agree. So we're coming from slightly different spaces. I love the character. I thought she was brilliant in WandaVision. I think she gives by far the best performance in the movie. That being said, I felt she was underwritten. I think the writing itself, like I haven't even gotten there yet, but she herself gives, with the material that is given to her, she gives every bit of herself as the different characters that she plays, to the point where it's just so believable because again, I try not to read up on too much of anything going in because I want to be as surprised as a regular person going in to see the movie. If you're a super fan and you know about these backstories, then of course you're going to know more than me, but I don't want to put things in there already that I don't know, right? I want to see the movie. And I do think she does give the best performance. That irritates me a little bit because that means that Benedict Cumberbatch does not hold up on screen. I think that they gave him a very flat character. There is no heart in this character at all. And it made me so mad. Like, I'm not saying he's bad. No, but what I'm saying is in No Way Home he has more heart than he has in this Infinity
movie.
War. And this is my like dark secret that I don't
give away a lot of secrets in this episode.
My dark secret that I don't give away because it infuriates people. I didn't like Infinity War. I loved Endgame, but I didn't hate Infinity War. It just felt very incomplete as a movie for me. But it's funny, you talked about how we disagreed on this movie. I think one of us liked it better than the other.
Yeah.
But there's so much that in terms of substance that we are agreeing about. And that Benedict Cumberbatch had a phenomenal year last year. He had Power of the Dog. He had No Way Home. He had Louis Wayne.
Oh, yeah.
And The Courier.
The Courier
was wildly underrated.
So good if you haven't seen The Courier.
Benedict Cumberbatch is good in anything. And he's not bad in this. But when you've got Benedict Cumberbatch as your lead, give him something to do.
Yeah.
And the best I can say for what they gave him to do is they gave him, I wasn't as disappointed in their underuse and growth of his character as I was in the underuse and growth of the Cape, which is my favorite character from the Doctor Strange universe. And I say that entirely as a compliment to how much I love the first movie, is that I love that Cape so much as a character, but I didn't, he didn't grow or have any great moments in this one. A lot of the humor was absent for me. The humor was there, but it was more in Sam Raimi's kind of macabre, ooh, that's not right, zombie kind of sense of humor.
Yeah, so I definitely think if you're into Sam Raimi's horror films and the horror comedies that he does and all of that, you are going to absolutely love this film. But I do think for me, just because I'm not as familiar, I mean, I didn't have an issue with it. It just, for me, it was outside the humor that we've been built up to look for and that we love. A few things that I really liked about the film is I loved that they brought in all of these old school Marvel comic monsters that I have over the last year. Because of Ty, who's on my other podcast, it's All Disney Podcast, Multiplane Podcast. He is a deep diver. He reads all the books, all of the, comic books, everything. And so he kind of got me into like the monsters of Marvel. And I have to say that I really enjoyed that. Yes, it's a horror film, but not in the way, it's not a slasher film. No. It's a horror film in that we have some dark subject matter, and I'm glad that they went as dark as they did. And the monsters that you have in this movie, they're really fun. They're not to the point. They're fun like the monsters in the Mummy movies and the monsters that are, in some other similar movies. It's not going to be super scary for your kids, I don't think. But there's a moment where Scarlet Witch kind of morphs her body out of something, and I just thought that was one of the coolest things that I had seen in a Marvel movie in a long time, because I do like the way that this is very different from this is going different. But if you are a lover of these comic books where you get the monsters, you get the dark, you get the surrealer, the dark arts, the witchcraft, all of that, I do love the coloring. I love the editing. I love just the visuals are so encapsulating that it did keep me going with all the things that I thought were missing from the film.
It was a visually striking movie. I'm not a horror fan. I do enjoy some of Sam Raimi's horror comedy. I'm not as hugely into it as some, but I do enjoy some of it. I love kaiju type monsters, and those were fun to see. But you mentioned the Mummy movies, and I kept thinking about The Mummy Returns throughout this whole movie, because to me, I mean, the first Mummy, okay, it's a silly movie, but it's a solid plot with a 3-act structure, a beginning, middle, and an end, and characters, and it's fun. The Mummy Returns is a roller coaster that goes straight down. And I don't mean straight down in terms of quality, but I mean, it's a relentless ride more so than a movie. It starts off with the action and just never lets up and doesn't bother to stop and think about things like characters and story, and doesn't flow well as a movie. And that's exactly how I felt here. I felt like I'm not watching a movie, I'm watching a sequel. And for me, it was a mediocre sequel. I didn't hate this movie. I left it. I wanted to have fun. I didn't have fun with it except for a few moments. So I left it. After a few days of just like thinking I hated this movie, I've come around to appreciating the things that I did like about it. So I'm going softer on it than my initial thoughts. But what I wanted out of Marvel, and what I overall want. What I say in my review is, I know a lot of people get really excited for the next Marvel movie, and this is another thing where I'm going to hurt my geek cred. I don't, but that sounds bad, and like I'm not an MCU fan. I'm not. For me, I think of the MCU as pizza day. Anybody who knows me knows that I love my pizza. Pizza is the best. Anytime I get pizza, I really enjoy it. It's the highlight of my day. But there's always another pizza coming sooner rather than later. So I don't spend any time thinking, when am I going to get pizza again? When can I have pizza again? Because there's always another pizza coming soon. And it's been a very long time since pizza was any kind of a novelty or something to look forward to me. That being said, when I get my pizza, I eat it up and enjoy it. For me, this pizza arrived, the delivery driver was carrying it on its side. It slid all over, and all the toppings and the cheese slid over to one side, and I was pretty disappointed in my pizza. I'm actually going to give the movie a C. And that's
I kind of wanted to know how many pizza slices you were going to give the movie.
That would have been a good C, honestly, is me working my way up. I originally would have given it a D. But there are some things that I did quite like. One thing that really intrigued and excited me that I can't talk about, that I'm dying to talk about. I'm dying for my twin brother to see this movie so I can talk to him about this specific aspect, because it had me like really excited. But so I'm not saying it's a terrible movie. It just, for me, was one of those Hollywood sequels that I felt more like I was watching a product that was just putting out the latest. We got to make money off of the MCU. It just was lacking in heart, a sense of fun and story, and it just didn't do anything for me.
And I'm a little bit of the opposite. With all the things that I said, that I didn't love about it, there were so many things that I really enjoyed. And seeing these parts of the film really boosted it. There was a lot of fanfare in the film that we can't talk about because we don't want to ruin it for you.
Fan service.
Fanfare, all that kind of stuff in the movie. For me, I definitely want to see the movie again, because I think that I want to put aside me as the excited fan going to see the movie, and then really just sit and watch the movie and see the things that I missed, because I think you can easily miss a lot of things that are happening in this movie just because you're trying to catch where everything is going. Saying that Benedict Cumberbatch was flat in this movie, his performance is still better than a lot of other actors' performances. He's a great actor.
He's still good.
He plays several different Doctor Stranges in the movie. You guys know that from the trailer. You know that from things leading up to it. And there are a few moments where I was just I thought that was really cool. I had those moments like, well, that was really cool. As much as I didn't think I got as much heart from him that I did in other movies, there were other things I was getting from him that I wasn't used to, that I really did enjoy. So I give this movie a solid B. It was a B- the first time I saw it. And then, like you, after digesting it over a couple of days and letting it really be what it is in my mind, and accepting that, it went up to a solid B. I definitely think if I watch it again, that solid B is going to be more solid. But more, I'm excited of where it's going to, what this movie does. is it adds on to what Spider-Man No Way Home did, in that it's opening up a way that the MCU can be more of what it is with less rules. And that may piss a lot of people off, but for me, it makes me more excited for what I think gets to happen over the next phase of the MCU. So for me, solid B. We would love to know what you think about the film. And, over the next couple of weeks, we might talk about it a little more with some spoilers on once, you get a chance to see it. But let us know below what you think about the film. You can also go to our Facebook page and message us there if you don't want everybody to see it. Either way, please, please, please subscribe to our YouTube page so that you can see our next reviews coming out next week and the weeks to come. Please share our Facebook page with everyone. We definitely want to grow and get to do more stuff with all of you. So
definitely. And I'm just going to quickly plead a defense. I'm a little paranoid about this movie. A fellow critic, I don't want to name who it was because I know she got some harassment over it, but freaked out when another movie ended this year saying, I'm going to get death threats over my review of this movie. And I feel a little bit, I felt a little bit when this was done. And I want to be clear that all my issues with this have to come from the fact that I do enjoy the MCU and was going into it wanting to have fun. I'm not hating on this movie for hate's sake. And I didn't.
Well, it's our job. We're film critics. It's our job to be critical about films so that you can know going in that there might be a few things that you may not like. That's our job. That's why you're tuning in. And it does make me super sad that we get, when you get especially into the Star Wars universe, into Marvel, into DC, you get these fans that they call themselves fans, but they're just awful to critics. They're awful to the actors. I try and stay away from all of that stuff and not read it because I just want to be able to give you my opinion without the fear. But it's hard sometimes. And I'm actually doing a live interview with, and I'm going to say Caitlin Booth, tomorrow night. We're actually going to talk live about this movie, spoilers and all. And so I'll make sure that I post a link on our Facebook page because Patrick and I both do a lot of things outside of Striking Movie Podcast, and we would love for you to follow us on all of those. But yeah, I feel for her. She writes for she writes for Bleeding Cool, and she is very much on Twitter. And
the thing about her is that's important to remember is with critics in general, and Caitlin exemplifies this, is Caitlin is a fan. If ever I knew one, she's a fan.
She's a huge fan.
A huge one. She, a lot of people locally didn't like, a lot of critics that I know were really down on Ghostbusters Afterlife. I really enjoyed that one, warts and all. Caitlin is a huge champion of it. So it was just the fact that she got jumped on because she didn't like the Batman, which I liked it better than she did. I didn't love it. I did like it better than Doctor Strange. But the point is, we're all in this together.
If you don't want to hear someone's opinion, don't read or watch a film critic review. That's my biggest thing. Become a film reviewer yourself and then give your opinion, and then you'll see that people are going to do the same. So for me, I just like to treat people the way I want to be treated. We're all film critics are film critics because we love films, and it hurts us when we don't write a good review because we want things to succeed. We want films to be made for the most part. And, it's just when you get into fandoms, it gets into a sticky situation. And I see it happen to a lot of film critics across the board. But like when it happens to young actresses, it just anyone, but especially when you're being derogatory to a young actress who's just trying to do her job. I just say be a bigger person, stop it, so but we will be back.
The point of loving, sorry, we need to wrap up, but I just want to say what on earth is the point of loving superheroes and all of, I mean, I fundamentally do not get loving superheroes and wanting to escape into that world and being the kind of person that
being
attacks a bully who attacks a young girl. What superhero does that? I'm sorry. That sounds maybe condescending, but I just like, it's not all about wearing a costume. It's about the ideals of saving people and making the world a better place. So that's my high horse, and I'll get off that. It's just a big nice that I have.
Yeah. All right, you guys, we hope you enjoyed the show today. Please leave your comments below. We would love to know what you want us to cover next. If there's a movie that came out or a movie that's coming out that you're super excited about. We don't usually cover everything because there's so many things. But if you're like, oh, I want to hear your opinion about this, let us know so we can make sure we put it on the docket. And we hope you're enjoying the show. Thank you for tuning in. Subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.